The modern empire doesn't expand with tanks. It expands with debt. But how? Every country on Earth is in debt. The United States owes over $38 trillion, the highest figure in its history. The European Union owes around $14 trillion. Japan, nearly $9 trillion. Even oil-rich Saudi Arabia, or export giants like Germany and China, are drowning in debt. But here's the paradox. If everyone is in debt, who are we all indebted to? I'm a historian of finance, and where money, power, and history intersect, nothing is as simple as it seems. Debt isn't just a burden, it's the architecture of the modern world. Every war, every crisis, every rise and fall stands on this invisible skeleton of credit and obligation. And when you follow that chain far enough, you find something unsettling. The world isn't in debt to anyone else. It's in debt to itself. But that doesn't mean everyone benefits equally. Act 1. The birth of debt. War and the state. Today's global debt stands near $315 trillion, nearly 3 times the size of the world economy. To understand how we got here, we have to go back, long before credit cards or digital transfers, to the birth of national debt. 1694. England is at war with France. Its gold reserves are empty. The king turns to merchants for help. They lend him money in exchange for perpetual interest payments backed by future taxes. To manage this new arrangement, the Bank of England was born. It was revolutionary. The state could now spend money it didn't yet have. And the lenders gained something priceless in return: the word of the crown. That promise could be bought and sold. This was the seed of the bond market, the foundation of modern finance. France copied it. Holland refined it. The newly independent United States embraced it to fund its revolution and later, its expansion westward. Soon, national debt was no longer a sign of weakness, but of trust. To borrow was to rule. Empires no longer conquered land for gold. They issued bonds for interest. The battlefield became the balance sheet. Act 2. Debt. The world's primary export. 3. Centuries later, debt is the world's most valuable export. Owes $38 trillion. Japan over $9 trillion. And global debt grows by $1 trillion every 100 days. Every nation owes. Every bank lends. Every citizen, through taxes, savings, and pensions, is both a debtor and a creditor. But who's on the other end of the rope? Act 3. America's debt to whom? Roughly half of America's debt is owed to the public, not to other governments. 2/3 of those creditors are Americans: banks, pension funds, insurance companies, and the Federal Reserve. The remaining third, about $9 trillion, belongs to foreign investors. Japan holds about $1 trillion, China around $800 billion, followed by the UK, Luxembourg, and Belgium. So when we say America owes China, it's true, but it's only 2% of the total. Most of America's debt is owed to America. The Treasury issues bonds. Banks and funds buy them. The Federal Reserve often buys them back, creating new dollars in the process. Citizens pay taxes. Those taxes pay bond interest, and that interest flows back into their own retirement accounts. It's a mirror loop. The debt is real, but the creditor is the system's reflection. Act 4. The global cycle. And it's not just the U.S. Japan buys U.S. bonds. The U.S. lends to Europe via the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations via the World Bank. And those nations recycle their reserves back into Western bonds. It's a global hot potato, except the potato is made of promises. Every country holds someone else's IOU. Every promise is backed by another promise. It's a poker table, every player borrowing chips from the next. And the only rule keeping the game alive? No one leaves the table. Act 5, the fourth layer, the markets. Behind every government bond stands a web of massive institutions. Hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks, controlling tens of trillions of dollars. They are the real credit authorities. They decide who borrows cheaply and who must bleed to survive. When their confidence wavers, currencies collapse, governments fall, and economies reshape overnight. Democracy decides who governs. Markets decide who survives. Act 6, the priests of the modern age, central banks. Central banks don't just manage debt, they create it. When the Fed or the ECB buys bonds, new money is born. One balance sheet's liability becomes another's asset. Every dollar in circulation represents someone's debt. There is no money without debt. Every coin, every note, every digital dollar carries an invisible inscription. I owe you. Act 7. The power of trust. This machine runs on one fuel: trust. As long as investors believe governments will keep paying interest, the machine hums. But when trust breaks, everything shatters. In 2010, Greece showed us what happens when the math stops working. Debt became unpayable. Bondholders panicked. Interest rates exploded. The IMF and the ECB intervened, but at a cost: austerity. Higher taxes, spending cuts, unemployment. A generation paid the price of rescue. In Argentina, defaults became a national curse. In Sri Lanka, fuel shortages and political collapse followed the government's suspension of debt payments. When the system breaks, creditors take shape. IMF, rating agencies, anonymous bondholders, invisible hands closing around entire nations. And yet, even after collapse, the same logic returns. New loans replace the old. Debt is restructured, renamed, reborn. Act 8. Debt is not made to be repaid, it's made to continue. In the 21st century, debt is not meant to be paid off, but rolled over. Governments don't plan to repay. Not now, not ever. That's not conspiracy. It's policy. Individuals pay back principal. States don't. They refinance. The real product isn't capital. It's interest. Debt is the rent of stability. The global economy depends on that rent. Like a shark that must keep swimming, the system must keep borrowing. The U.S. will never pay off its $38 trillion. It will goal it forever. Japan's debt exceeds 250% of its GDP, yet interest rates hover near zero. Investors don't expect repayment. They expect renewal. Because sovereign debt is not a burden, it's the world's safest asset. U.S. Treasury bonds aren't liabilities. They are money itself. Pension funds hold them. Banks use them as collateral. Central banks treat them as reserves. If governments actually paid off their debt, the world would lose its most trusted financial instrument. Dollars would vanish. Deflation. Collapse. So governments do the opposite. They issue more, not chaotically, but rhythmically. Debt becomes the heartbeat of capitalism. Act 9. The real goal. Sustainability, not settlement. So when politicians promise to balance the budget, they're selling an illusion. The goal isn't to eliminate debt. It's to keep it sustainable, payable, and believable. Because when belief dies, numbers mean nothing. Interest soars, trust collapses. and the economy, built on promises, stops. That's the hidden truth of sovereign debt. The plan was never to repay it. The plan was to keep the world believing in it. As long as that trust endures, the numbers can grow forever. But trust isn't distributed equally. When we say we owe it to ourselves, we're only half right. Interest doesn't flow evenly. It flows upward, from taxpayers and workers to the holders of bonds and capital. Debt isn't just a transfer between nations. It's a transfer between classes. The system rewards those who hold debt and punishes those who pay it. Debtors aren't evil. Creditors aren't saints. Both are gears in the same engine. The question is, what happens when the engine runs out of fuel? When new borrowing can no longer cover old promises? Who do we owe stops being abstract and becomes personal. Because at the top of this pyramid, there's no single face to blame. Not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF. It's all of them and us. Modern finance turned debt into money. Governments issue it. Banks multiply it. Investors trade it. Citizens live on it. The line between debtor and creditor has vanished. Once debt meant bondage. Now it means balance. But when that balance breaks, when trust runs out, the illusion fades. And we remember what debt truly is, a promise that cannot be kept forever.